How do you feel right now?
Good
We're
morning,
fine
Miss.
po, ma'am.
Kind of nervous, Miss.
Nervous. Why?
Just Miss because of course it's first day again of the second semester, and we are we hope to learn more, and that's all, Miss. We're eager to learn more, and we are hoping to learn something from you, Miss.
So if you want to learn more, should it be the reason why you should feel nervous?
Um, no, Miss. Kinda ko lang, Miss. I for me, Miss, I'm kinda afraid of what do you call this again? Medyo ma-fail ko, Miss Lana. But
Oh,
yes, Miss. But for me is I'll try my best lang, Miss, so that um I can pass this subject, Miss.
okay. Hope you can overcome that fear, because there's nothing for you to be afraid of for as long as you are prepared at all times for your class, di ba? You only have to spend time studying your lessons and working on the assigned tasks so that you will be able to share in the learnings for the day. So remember that it's not only the students who will be learning from the teacher's input, but it is also the teacher who can be who he will also learn something from their students, di ba? It's a two-way traffic, not a one-way traffic, di ba? So that's it. There's nothing for you to be afraid of. For as long as you're willing to learn, then you should do your part in the learning process. So allow me to share this with you for a while, ha? Mag-share screen sa ko. Can you see it on the screen?
Yes, Miss.
Yes, miss.
Yes
Okay.
po.
Well, everybody say, read it aloud.
Professionalism
Professionalism in
in
the
the
online
online
classroom.
classroom.
Learning in a digital
Then teaching
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 and
and
teaching and
learning
learning
learning in a digital world.
in a digital world. Okay. So just because you are a student does not mean that you are not a professional. It's important to be courteous and respectful, especially online. Even though you are sitting behind the screen and typing instead of talking, the student code of conduct still applies. So having access to social devices does not mean that you have the right to cyberbully. Make sure your microphone is muted if you are not the one talking. Upload a professional photo of yourself if you don't want to turn on your camera while online discussion is going on. Because I have noticed that some students use a cartoon character instead of using their profile picture showing the most recent picture of themselves. So I hope that you will use your profile picture that is the most recent one. Or if not, for as long as maklaro lang inyong face. So if your study space is your bedroom, use a virtual background to give yourself some privacy. Use the headphone if you are attending a lecture in a common place. But if you are inside your house, you are in the living room, in the dining room, or in your bedroom, then pwede naman nga you don't use a headphone for as long as quiet lang ang inyong environment. Then use the raise hand button or the function if you have a question to ask. Remember that academic integrity still applies to online courses. And this is the core value of USC. Maintaining academic integrity while earning your degree represents your true academic accomplishments. Have you signed your integrity pledge?
Yes, ma'am. Done na.
Yes, Miss.
Have you
Yes,
printed
ma'am.
it?
Yes,
Yes,
po.
miss.
Okay,
Yes.
but you are going to submit that during our first face-to-face session. When are we going to have the face-to-face session? As I have announced already,
February 6.
that will be by February 6 for the MW class and February 7 for the TTH class. So I know that everyone is so excited to see the face of your classmates as well as to see also the face of your teachers, isn't it?
Yes, Miss.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes po, ma'am.
Okay. Now, what happens if I am caught violating the academic integrity? So academic misconduct is a serious form of intellectual dishonesty, and the university will investigate all suspected allegations of academic misconduct. The sanctions for academic misconduct vary according to many factors, including the severity of the violation, how severe it is, what year you are in your program. Are you in your first year, second year, third year, or fourth year level? And whether it is a first violation or a second violation, and so on. So the sanctions can include educational workshops, or in the case of severe or multiple violations, suspension or expulsion from the university. Okay, so do you have any questions now with regards to academic integrity? Do you have a copy of the student's manual? Anyone?
Only the PDF version, miss.
Only the PDF version of the student manual was provided by the university.
Yes, miss.
You don't have a hard copy or print out of that manual yet?
Not yet, miss.
Were you promised to have a copy, hard copy of that student's manual, and when can you get it?
So far, miss, no announcement were disseminated with regards to the student manual being hard copies.
No announcement yet. So I hope that you will be given a printed copy of the manual. But if that is already provided online, or you have your e-copy of that manual, then I think it would also be easy for you to go over it, because students are tech savvy compared to their teachers, isn't it?
Yes, miss.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, miss.
Okay, so that's your competitive advantage. Okay, I would like to share another slides here. Okay. So the descriptive title for AC 1203 is Cost Accounting and Control. So what is cost accounting? It is a specialized branch of accounting which involves cost classification, cost accumulation, cost assignment, and control of costs used in determining the unit cost and the total cost in product costing as well as in service costing. So cost accounting is actually a branch under management accounting because it is designed to serve the needs of the internal users, specifically the department head or the manager. Whereas in financial accounting, it serves the external needs or the it is intended for external reporting of the entity. So the information provided in cost accounting will be needed specifically for inventory costing purposes. So there are three classes of inventories in cost accounting, namely the raw materials inventory, the work in process inventory, and the finished goods inventory. Whereas in your financial accounting subjects, you have already come across the inventory accounts called merchandise inventory as well as supplies inventory. Supplies inventory will still be used by those companies adopting cost accounting, specifically the service and the manufacturing entities. Now, financial accounting is used by companies that are into merchandising or trading business, even in service as well as in manufacturing entities. However, their focus is on external reporting to serve the needs of the external users, which includes the different government agencies such as the BIR, the Securities and Exchange Commission, Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, and so on. So let us now consider the organizational structure of the company. So in the organizational structure, you will know that on top of it will be the company's CEO, the Chief Executive Officer. And the CEO will appoint who will be the Chief Finance Officer, the Chief Administrative Officer, the Chief Information Officer or CIO. And under the CFO, the Chief Finance Officer, who is sometimes called the VP Finance or the Vice President for Finance. So under him will be the company's controller or controller, who is regarded as the executive accounting officer in the company. Or the controller is the so-called chief accountant, the chief accountant of the company. In some companies, the treasurer will be aligned with that of the controller. But there are also companies wherein the treasurer will be under the supervision of the controller. But what is ideal is to separate the treasury office from the controller's office. So under the controller's office, sometimes in manufacturing firms, they call the controller as their general accountant. Then under the general accountant will be the cost accountant, whereas the cashier will be directly supervised by the company's treasurer. So we separate the cash custodial function, which is under the treasury office, from the recording and reporting function, which is under the controller's office. So the cost accountant will be directly reporting to the general accountant or to the company's controller. Then under the cost accountant's office will be the accounting staff, to include the payroll clerk. So the moment you finish your baccalaureate degree, may it be BSA, may it be BSMA, may it be BSIA, the entry-level job that you can get will be that of a clerical job. So there are so many clerical jobs available. Like you can be, or the company can be hiring for accounts receivable clerk, accounts payable clerk, inventory clerk, or even the payroll clerk. So the clerical job is your entry level job for this position. But generally, our accountancy graduate will take the LECPA. What is LECPA? Do you know what LECPA stands for?
No.
No, ma'am.
That used to be known before as SIPALE. And SIPALE stands for what?
Certified Public Accountant
Certified public.
Exams.
Certified Public Accountants Licensure Exam. But now BOA, the Board of Accountancy, has changed SIPALE into LECPA. They will now use the term LECPA instead of SIPALE. But they mean the same thing. Okay, so LECPA stands for what?
Licensure examination.
Licensure exam for certified public accountants. So just last Saturday, we attended the NACPAE Visayas Regional Forum. And it was pointed out by the chair of BOA, that's Mr. Quinianola, that from now on, we will be using the term LECPA instead of SIPALE. And they are planning to have a 2-year work experience as a requirement before taking LECPA. For now, immediately after earning your degree in Bachelor of Science of Accountancy, you're qualified to take the LECPA. But the moment their proposal will be approved by Congress, a new law will be passed that will require the graduates of the BS Accountancy course to have a 2-year work experience first before taking LECPA. I hope that will not happen during your time, no? Because it will take several years now before you can join the workforce. Okay, then part of their plan also is to have a specialization In other words, you have to choose which particular field of specialization would you like to join, or would you like to specialize, no? In what field? Like, will it be in the field of audit? Will it be in the field of financial accounting? Will it be in taxation? And so on, okay? But I think that will take time yet before it will be realized. Because as I have said, it needs an approval from Congress to implement what they have proposed to the Congress. Okay. So cost accounting plays as the wait, for a while I forgot. Regarding the line position against staff position. Now, what is the difference between the two? In the line position, you are involved in the decision making process. So meaning to say that for example, the VP Finance, the function of the Vice President for Finance is considered to be a line function because they can decide at their own level as they supervise the various sub-departments or sub-offices under his area. Whereas in a staff position, that is something that involves supervising other departments, wherein you only provide support services to those in the line position. So accounting is functioning as a staff position, no? Because it provides support services to all the other departments. It does not decide. It is not the one deciding in behalf of the other departments, but rather they provide services, support services to those people in the line position. Okay, next. So cost accounting plays as the foundation of financial and management accounting. One cannot prepare financial statements nor generate internal management reports without first determining accurately as possible the cost of the product or service it provides. Now, by the way, is somebody recording our discussion?
Yes,
Class?
Miss.
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
thank you. So I would allow you to have this discussion recorded so that if ever you will be absent, or if ever there is something that you are not able to catch up, then at least you can review the recorded discussion. Okay?
Thank you, Miss.
So the uses of cost accounting information. It provides the detailed cost information that management needs to control the current operations and plan for the future. So management uses this cost information to decide how to allocate or how to distribute resources to the most efficient and profitable areas of the business. Now remember, the company's resources are scarce, meaning they are limited. And since we have limited resources, then you should be able to allocate the limited resources well. So that is why information about costs is very important for the management to guide them in making decisions. especially when it comes to budgeting. How much money will be allocated for this particular cost item? So like for example, the purchase of raw materials. How much will be budgeted for raw material purchases for this year? And of course, when you budget for raw material purchases, you also have to know the production needs of the company. How many units do you plan to produce for the year? So in producing the products, you should know how much it will cost you to buy the needed raw materials that will be used for production, how much will be the labor cost involved, how much will be the overhead cost that shall be allocated for the year to meet the production requirements. Then aside from budgeting purposes, there is a need for the management to know how much is the cost of producing a product, or how much is the cost of providing services to their clients or customers. Why? Because the cost shall be used as the basis in setting the price of such product or services. So like for example, if you produce a product that will cost you 100 pesos per unit, of course, you are not going to sell it at 100 also. You want to include a markup based on cost in order to get its selling price. So if you want to add the markup, which is 50% of cost, and 50% of 100 is how much?
50, ma'am.
50 ma'am.
Okay, 50 pesos would be your desired markup. Add the markup of 50 pesos to the cost of the product, which is 100. Therefore, the selling price per unit is
150.
150 ma'am.
150. Okay, there are some companies in setting the price, they use a bundled price. Like for example, if you buy only one unit, that will cost you 150. But if you buy 2 units, instead of paying 300, you are allowed to pay only 250 pesos. So you have a 50 peso discount because you pay for a discounted price, which is the bundled price of 250 for 2 units. So that is part of the marketing strategy used by the company. Or sometimes to attract more customers, to entice the customers to buy your product, rather than going to your competitor, they will allow you to buy it at a price of let us say 120 instead of the selling price of 150. So you would say if the price is 120 compared to the regular selling price of 150, then you expect more customers to buy your product because you are offering it at a lower price compared to the competitor. But there are also some manufacturers or sellers who are willing to sell their product even below cost. So if the cost of the product is 100, they're willing to sell it at 90. So you would say, alcance. They will be having at a loss, alcance by 10 pesos because they're selling it at 10 peso below the cost of producing that product. But actually, it's not It's not a total loss on the part of the manufacturer or the seller. Why? Because maybe some of their materials are also acquired at a discounted amount, no? Napalit nila ang raw material, so actually the cost of producing one product is not 100 but is even less than 100, maybe at 80 because of the 20 peso discount. And then you're offering a price to your customer which is 10 peso less than the actual cost of the finished product, no? So it's not totally a lugi on their part, but that kind of strategy, that kind of pricing which is below the cost of producing the product, that is only offered to the customers if that is the only item left unsold in the company, para lang ma-dispose ang product. Isn't it?
Yes, Miss.
Yes, Miss.
Okay. So, what is a cost accounting system? It is an accounting information system, or AIS, or framework used by firms to estimate the cost of their products or services for profitability analysis, inventory valuation, and cost control. Kung dunay cost accounting system, doon naman sa financial accounting system. But the financial accounting system is quite broader, it is broader in scope compared to the cost accounting system. There is a separate subject in your curriculum that covers AIS. And under AIS is also the cost accounting system. That is why cost accounting subject is offered ahead of the course accounting information system, because it would be easier for you to understand the components of AIS after you have learned the basics in cost accounting. So what are the 5 parts of a cost accounting system? Number 1 is the input measurement basis. 2 is the inventory valuation method. 3 is the cost accumulation method. 4th is the cost flow assumption. And number 5 is the capability of recording inventory cost flows at certain intervals. So when we say input measurement basis, so the basis of a cost accounting system begins with the type of costs that flow into and through the inventory accounts using either actual costing, normal costing, or standard costing. So the company may use any one of these 3 input measurement basis. So what is the difference between actual costing, normal costing, and standard costing? Remember, there are 3 elements of production. What are they? What are the 3 elements of production, or the 3 elements of costing the product, or what comprises the cost of a product? If you have read chapter 1, you should be able to answer this question, di ba?
Direct labor, Miss. Direct materials.
Again.
Direct labor, raw materials and factory overhead.
Okay, materials, labor, and overhead. Yes, you are correct. Those are the three elements of production: materials, labor, and overhead. So, in actual costing, the costing of materials, labor, and overhead will be done using actual costs. Actual cost of materials used, actual labor costs assigned, and the actual overhead costs incurred for the period. In normal costing, both materials and labor will be reported at actual cost, but for the overhead, it will be reported at standard costs or the predetermined overhead costs. See the difference between actual costing and normal costing. But in standard costing, all the three elements of production will be costed at standard costs. And when we say standard cost, that is the predetermined costs, the target costs, or the cost already known in advance. That's why you call it pre, meaning before, predetermined costs. So in standard costing, the materials, labor, and overhead shall be costed at standard or predetermined costs. Gets niyo ang difference sa tulo?
Yes, Miss.
Slightly
Okay.
confused.
Feel free to ask questions if you have some as I discuss these basics in accounting. We always start our discussion with the theoretical aspects before we apply theories through problem solving. Okay? Okay, the second part of a cost accounting system is the inventory valuation method. How you value or what amount or what is the value assigned to your inventories. So applying the method of valuing inventories such as throughput costing, ABC or activity-based costing, absorption or full costing, direct or variable costing. So you can choose any one of those that I have mentioned. When I say throughput costing, it involves tracing the least amount of cost to the inventory. Because in throughput costing, your product cost involves only the costing of materials used. All other costs like costs of labor and overhead along with non-production costs are considered as period costs. These are the costs that will be charged to a particular period and not directly identifiable with the production of those units. Now in ABC or activity-based costing, it includes tracing the greatest amount of cost to the inventory. So here, the overhead will be costed based on the number of activities done in producing such product. So the more activities done in using the product, the more costs will be charged to that product. Now, anyway, we will have a separate discussion about ABC later on. Okay, we'll come to that discussion. We will discuss ABC separately later during the first half of the sem. Now, in direct or variable costing, a greater amount of cost is traced compared to the throughput costing. Because in variable costing, which is also known as direct costing, only the direct materials, direct labor cost, and variable overhead constitute what we call product costs. All other costs, like fixed overhead, will be fixed overhead as well as the fixed non-production costs will be treated as non-production costs. So in full costing or absorption costing, direct materials, direct labor, variable overhead, as well as fixed overhead will be identified as part of product costs. All other costs and expenses incurred in the making of the product shall be considered as period cost, costs that will be charged outright as an expense for the period that they were incurred, such as your selling and administrative expenses for the period. So direct costing and full absorption costing are the traditional methods, while throughput and activity-based methods are relatively new. These inventory valuation methods are very important because they control the manner in which net income is determined. So if, for example, the company chooses to use direct costing, so the net income computed under direct costing would be different from the net income if you used full costing, unless there is no change in inventory level, meaning to say that beginning inventory is equal to your ending inventory. So in other words, if production is equal to sales, meaning all units produced are completely sold, then in that case, the resulting net income for the period will be the same under both direct costing and full or absorption costing. But if the production is not equal to sales, then definitely the resulting net income under variable costing will be different from the net income under full costing. So you have to justify the use of a particular inventory valuation method. Now, the controller must know what is the effect of using this particular inventory valuation method, because management also relies on the recommendation of the company's accountant as to what is the preferred inventory valuation should they use, especially if the owner or the management has no background at all in accounting. So they would be dependent on whatever is recommended by the company's accountant. Okay, what about the second part of a cost accounting information system, which is cost accumulation method? Now, what do you mean by cost accumulation? It refers to the manner in which costs are collected and identified with specific customers, jobs, batches, orders, departments, and processes. Okay, such method will include job order costing, process costing, hybrid or operation costing, joint product costing, standard costing, activity-based costing or ABC, and backflash costing. Then you would say, Daghan pa day natong dapat study no about cost accounting kay daghan man kaayong cost accumulation methods nga pwedeng magamit sa company. So, job order costing, that is the first cost accumulation method that we shall discuss. Then followed by process costing, hybrid costing, and then joint product costing, and activity-based costing. Standard costing and backflush costing are no longer included in AC 1203 because the time is not enough for this course to include those two topics. But actually, standard costing and backflush costing is really are really considered as cost accounting subjects. But due to time constraints, we cannot accommodate all the topics here in one semester. That is why we decided to include them in the other subjects. So you'll take up standard costing in your management accounting class, and then backflush costing will be taken up also in, I think, in your what subject is that? Strategic cost accounting, because backflush costing has something to do with JIT, the just-in-time inventory system. So these cost accumulation methods are influenced by the type of production operation and the extent to which detailed cost accounting information is needed by management. So take note of these two factors that you shall take into account in the choice of what cost accumulation method shall be adopted or employed by the company. Now, another important part of the cost accounting system is the cost flow assumption. It refers to how costs flow through the inventory accounts, not the flow of work or products on a production line. Now, this distinction is important because the flow of cost is not always the same as the flow of work. The various types of cost flow assumptions include specific identification, like you determine the cost flows per job or per customer's order. Another type of cost flow is the first in, first out method. Ang unang masugdan, dapat may unang mahuman. That's the main concept of first in, first out. Ang unang nasud, may unang mugawas. So expected na unang mahuman ang unang gisugdan, di ba? Then we also have what we call the weighted average method. We will take that up later, particularly under the topic process costing. Okay, another part of the cost accounting information system would be recording interval capability. So inventory records can be maintained using either perpetual or periodic inventory basis. Conceptually, the perpetual inventory method provides a company with the capability of maintaining continuous records of the quantities of inventory and the costs flowing through the inventory accounts. The periodic method, which is also known as physical inventory method, requires counting the quantity of inventory before inventory records can be updated. In other words, there is a need to conduct an inventory count. An inventory count refers to the actual counting of merchandise on hand, meaning they are left unsold. So it is also a requirement by BIR that you should have conducted an actual count at least once a year. But there are some companies which would even conduct an actual count or inventory count more than once a year. They can have it twice a year. They can have it every end of the quarter. And there are how many quarters in 1 year? One quarter is how many months?
4 months, Miss. 3 months, rather.
One
6 months.
quarter. How do you express that in fraction? Ang
1/4,
quarter.
Miss.
That's 1/4. And there are
4
how many
quarters
months?
in
How many months in a year?
12 months.
12,
Miss.
Miss.
Therefore, 1/4 of 12 months is
3,
3
Miss.
months.
3 months.
Therefore, one quarter covers
3 months, Miss.
3 months.
3 months.
Okay. How many quarters in a year?
3 months, Miss.
4.
4.
How
4
many
quarters,
quarters?
Miss.
There are 4 quarters in a year. Each quarter equivalent to 3
3
months.
months.
3 months.
So they are allowed to conduct an actual count, an inventory count every quarter. So 4 times in a year. Or they are allowed to conduct an actual count or inventory count every after 6 months. Or that's semi-annual. Or they may just conduct an inventory count or actual count once a year. So that's on an annual basis. If you're just so observant, most of the stores or most of the manufacturing firms will be closed at a certain date in December. So they choose a particular date or particular month that they are not so busy serving the customers. And that is the chosen date of conducting the inventory count. So dili uniform nga tanang companies mag-inventory count on December 31. It can be any other date set by the company. Okay? So they can conduct it once a year, twice a year, or even every after quarter. Okay, so in the past, manufacturers tended to keep perpetual inventories while retailers used the periodic method. However, today, a variety of modern point-of-sale devices and dedicated microcomputer software are readily available to provide any company with perpetual inventory capability. I don't know if you learned sa senior high in your ABM class, in your basic accounting class about the difference between perpetual inventory system and the periodic inventory system. Most of the merchandising or trading business will be using the periodic or physical inventory system. Whereas every time they buy the merchandise from the supplier, may it be for cash or on credit, they debit the account purchases. Then if paid outright, credit cash. But if acquired on account, they credit accounts payable. However, if they use perpetual inventory system, every time they produce or every time they buy the product, they buy the merchandise, instead of debiting purchases, they will use the asset account called merchandise inventory and credit cash if it is paid outright in cash. Have you tried recording the transaction
Yes, Miss.
using perpetual?
Yes,
inventory,
Yes, Miss.
and also using the periodic inventory system?
Yes, Miss.
Yes, Miss.
Okay.
Yes, Miss.
So please review what you have learned in the basic accounting subject about the use of perpetual inventory system. I think you have a basic accounting book where you can review your topics there. So anyway, we will still be discussing the entries under the perpetual inventory system because that is the one commonly used by most manufacturing firms. So these are the 5 parts of a cost accounting system: the input measurement basis, inventory valuation method, the cost accumulation method, the cost flow assumption, and recording interval capability. So these are the terms that will be commonly used. Like reporting costs means providing cost information to various stakeholders. Stakeholders are the users of accounting information, the interested users of accounting information. When we say estimating costs, it means the process of forecasting a future result in terms of cost based on information available at that time. But when we say actual cost, it means an amount determined on the basis of costs incurred, including standard cost properly adjusted for applicable variances. The word variance means the difference between actual cost and standard cost. Then lastly, we have the term indirect cost pool. It means a grouping of incurred cost identified with 2 or more objects, but not identified specifically with any final cost object. So when you say a cost pool, it's just like a bucket of costs where it contains the cost summary. But when the said cost is indirect, indirect cost is a cost that cannot be directly associated with a particular product or costing object. When we say costing object, that is the object of costing, meaning it answers the question, what is to be costed? So example of a costing object would be product, service, department, company, region, depot. So in other words, it refers to a segment or a part of the whole company. So like for example, the entire company is divided into different departments, and departments are classified into production departments and non-production departments. So for production departments, we have mixing department, we have refining department, we also have the finishing departments. Those are the production lines. Those are the production departments that are directly involved in the making of the product. While those departments that provide support services, these are what we call service departments, like the accounting department. Or let us say in a particular school, for instance, ang production departments sa schools will be those academic departments that offer the various academic programs or degrees. Whereas the non-academic departments are considered as our service departments because they provide support services to the academic or production departments. So like accountancy department, That is an example of a production department. Because they produce quality graduates, which are considered as the products of a particular program offered by the school or the university. So what to be regarded as non-production departments? These are the non-academic departments like the library, the general services, the canteens, the, what else? The EDP, or we no longer have the EDP department, but we have it known as, for example, I forgot the name of the department that replaces the name EDP, Electronic Data Processing Department, that is now replaced by, kato bitaw inyong giadto sa OBOS for during the enrollment for processing of your data for your ID also. I forgot the name of the department. And then the library is also part of your non-academic departments. The HRMO, that's another example of a non-academic department. So with the how do you call this? Under the student, the one that supervises the various student organizations, that supervises the SSC, the Supreme Student Council, no? So those are considered as non-production or non-academic departments. So costs directly incurred by a production department are considered as direct costs. The indirect costs incurred by those various departments are considered indirect costs because they are not directly traceable to that particular costing object. Okay, let us now consider the flow of costs without the journal entries yet. So these are the three elements of production: materials, labor, and overhead. Materials are classified into two: direct materials and indirect materials. Labor is also classified into two, namely direct labor and indirect labor costs, while overhead refers to all the other indirect manufacturing costs. Other indirect manufacturing costs. So indirect materials, indirect labor, this one, and indirect costs of production termed as factory overhead, manufacturing overhead, or factory overhead. That is part of the so-called overhead cost classification. So when you, okay, so I have here the costs of the product includes both manufacturing and non-manufacturing costs. The manufacturing costs are materials, labor, and overhead, the overhead. Then non-manufacturing costs are the marketing and the administrative expenses. Marketing or selling expenses, that includes advertising expense. Then you also have the administrative costs like office salaries and expenses. So when you buy the raw materials, you have to figure out first whether it is considered as direct or indirect materials. But however, with regards to the recording of the purchase of materials, such classification is not needed yet, because when you buy the materials, you debit the asset account materials or materials inventory, and credit cash. If you buy it on account, then you credit accounts payable. If you buy indirect materials, then you debit that to steel materials at the time of purchase and credit cash if bought for cash, or credit accounts payable if bought on credit. So at the time of purchase, the classification of materials is not needed yet, even though you know that the material acquired is considered direct or indirect. The classification is needed once these materials are requisitioned by other departments. What do you mean by being requisitioned? Meaning to say that there is a request for such materials to be issued from the factory or the stock room or the warehouse going to the department which requested for its issuance. So when direct materials will be issued to production department A, the entry for that is debit work in process and credit materials. If the materials issued are indirect materials, then you debit factory overhead control or FOC account and credit materials once they are issued from the warehouse going to the requesting or requisitioning department. For direct labor costs, charge it to the job that uses it. So to record direct labor cost, you debit that to work in process. You debit that to work in process and credit that to Again, to record the direct labor cost assigned to a particular job, you debit that to work in process and credit payroll. If indirect labor cost to be assigned to a particular job or customer's order, you debit that to work in process, to FOC rather, to factory overhead control, and then credit payroll. If you have other indirect costs assigned to a particular job, like you have indirect material cost, indirect labor, and such other indirect production costs, then charge the indirect materials, indirect labor, and other indirect manufacturing costs to FOC account, and then credit that to the appropriate account to be used, depending on the composition of that overhead costs. So just like when indirect materials are used, then you debit that to FOC and credit to materials. Indirect labor costs, you debit that to FOC and credit payroll. Other indirect costs that cannot be part of indirect materials nor indirect labor, charge it to FOC, and then you credit that to the appropriate accounts involved. For example, you depreciate the cost of the warehouse used for storing the materials. So you will, instead of debiting depreciation, you replace it with the account factory overhead control. So debit FOC and credit accumulated depreciation hyphen warehouse. So that is how the warehouse is depreciated. you don't use the controlling account depreciation expense, but instead, you put that under the FOC or factory overhead control account. Anyway, you'll be learning more about this, not only in chapter 1, but also in chapter 2 of your textbook. Okay, are there any questions so far?
I have a question, Miss.
Yes.
This is with regards to the one you mentioned sa journal entries sa materials, Miss. I
Yes.
was confused when you mentioned that they're only classified when issued. So during the journal entries, Miss, direct materials ug indirect same sila og entries? Na ibo ko
On-
dito.
Only at the time of acquisition. When you acquire, when you buy the materials, classification is not needed yet. Although it is possible that what you are buying is a direct material or is an indirect material. But for purposes of recording the purchase of materials, the classification is not necessary yet. That's why upon purchase of materials for cash, your entry is debit materials or materials inventory and credit cash.
So
Meaning,
that's applied for both indirect and direct materials if ever.
the classification of materials is needed only upon issuance.
Okay. Thank you, Miss. Thank you.
So like, di ba, lahi man ang department that will buy the materials. No? Then
Yeah.
when the materials ordered will be delivered to the company, usually it will be delivered either directly to the store or directly to the bodega. But most of the times, it will be delivered directly to their warehouse or bodega. So in the warehouse, the stockroom clerk or the bodeguero will inspect the delivered items to find out if they are in good condition, if there are no defects on the delivered items. Otherwise, kung may defects, pwede nila i-reject. Dili nila dawaton. They will ask also for possible replacement kung may defect ang gi-deliver nga items. So when you receive the delivered materials in the warehouse, you don't classify it yet as either direct or indirect. But because of familiarity already, you know that this material that you receive is direct or indirect material. But for recording purposes, the purchase of materials will be charged to a common account called materials or materials inventory. Ma-classify lang nimo ang materials only upon its issuance. Kung ang warehouse in charge will issue direct materials to the production department, your entry is debit work in process, then charge it to the requesting department, which is the let us say Department A. So debit work in process, Department A, credit materials. So mugamay ang material costs in the warehouse. Ngano man, kay ila namang gi-issue to Department A, which is a production department. Nya kung katong gi-issue sa Department A mo sobra, meaning dili tanan nga gi-issue dito sa Department A magamit ni Department A, so iuli ni Department A ang wa magamit, ang excess materials. So inig-uli ana to the bodega, simply reverse the entry. You debit materials and credit work in process. Is that clear?
Yes, Miss.
Any other questions? Ganahan jud kong mangutana mo, class.
Miss, I
Okay,
have a
that goes to
question.
say that you are listening attentively. Yes, Adrian?
Hello, Miss. When it comes to the pro forma entries of the direct and indirect materials, including the direct labor and the indirect labor, they all have the same pro forma entries. Since the only difference is the name because they need to be classified.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So, kung mag-issue na, mag-assign na sa materials to a particular department or to a particular job, wala, diha na ka magamit og work in process. So both direct material cost and direct labor cost will be debited to work in process once they are assigned to a particular cost object, to a particular item that is being costed. So kung kana nga materials gigamit for job number 1, then you debit work in process job 1, credit materials. Kung ang gigamit nga materials are indirect materials, then do not use work in process. Use FOC, factory overhead control. Then credit materials. So the controlling account called materials consists of both direct and indirect materials. Kay asset man ang materials, it has a normal debit balance. So once mo credit kag materials, it reduces the cost of your materials account because of the issuance of the said materials. Then the department that uses the materials, dito i-charge nila. So kung gigamit sa particular job order or customer's order, charge it to work in process. Pero kung commonly used by the department, they are identified as indirect materials used, use the FOC account. Then credit materials. Clear ba?
Yes,
Yes,
Miss.
Yes, miss.
Ang uban lagi waiting silence means. Okay. Lisod, no? Because I cannot read what is in your mind. Di man gugo superwoman, no? Nga makabasa unsay naa sa inyong hunahuna. Mo nang you should have to express whether you understand it or not, no? Otherwise, I will presume nga nakasabot tanan. Kay wa may ni-react. Oh. So I will assume nga, okay, nakasabot di ay. So I will proceed. Diretso ra gyud kog sirit og discuss ay kung wa gyoy mangutana, di ba? O pangutana jud mo. Kay moingon niyo, "Siyempre, mo istrahay to mag-discuss nga na awa na." Ang kinirabang mga reklamador kay kinirabang mga gagmay grado, mga hagbong, di ba? Ang mga bright mo inoy di mangutana, ang dili mo reklamo. I would be happy if my students will participate in the class discussion because that confirms nga you are following my discussion. That confirms nga nakasabot mo. Or that confirms nga wa mo kasabot, mao nang nangutana mo. Or gusto lang mo clarification kay kamusad naglibog pug mo. You are in doubt. So you express your doubt. No? You are here to learn and I am here to help you understand the subject matter. Di ba? Hello. Morning
Yes.
ka na. Morning akong di ganahan sa
Yes,
kanang
Miss.
online
Yes po, ma'am.
class. Kay
Yes, miss.
kana bitaw di ko kakita sa inyong mga hitsura unsay immediate reaction, nakasabot ba sa wala, nangunot bang agtang sa wala, naminaw ba or wala. No, ang uban naghigda-higda lang. Okay rag nang higda. Ang uban galingkod po. Ang uban gakaon, okay ra man ang gakaon ra diha, basta minaw lang, importante ni minaw lang. Nya mangutana lang gyud basta di kasabot, no. Ana, gyud. Gibahiran gud ko ninyo kay para mo makasabot. Okay, yes. Therese, you're raising your hand.
I have a question, and this is not related to discussion, pero it's about the face-to-face po. There are sometimes po na naiuban magdala of tablet for ebook purposes na lang. Is it okay to bring it during class?
You're going to bring what?
We're going to bring like a tab, Miss Ba, just so that we could use it in if we have like a picture or scan of the book, because some of the students here were not able to purchase the book, Miss, and
Ngano
so
lang ka purchase sa book, oy.
in my case, Miss, the budget during the cut-off wala akong budget, Miss, so I
Ngano gi budget nga natural man na nga mo naagid tay palitong libro kung eskwela ta, di ba? Hindi man ni public school nga provided for free ang books, di ba?
timingan lang, Miss Ba, na during the time nag-i-open ang forms, I ran out of budget. And so, ang katong time na magpadala na akong dad, like when
But I
yung
think
salary,
you can still purchase naman the book.
from what
It is still available, di ba?
limited, Miss, ilarang gikat.
Gilimit bitaw. In other words, the number of books available for sale is not equal to the number of students enrolled. So definitely naagyoy di kapalit sa libro kay out of stock na. That's why I announced earlier through your class reps nga kung pwede you buy the books as early as possible kay aron dili mo maabtan nga mawa na ang stocks, di ba? So I think Mr. Ray Amaya is the one in charge for the distribution of the books. So it's in the department. So your concern now is it okay to bring what?
A gadget, Miss?
What
during the
gadget?
for example, an iPad lang, Miss, for the purpose of having a copy shared by friends. And
But piramang na iPad. No problem with that. You can always bring with you your gadget. You can bring your cell phone. You can bring your laptop. Advisable nga you bring a laptop. You're allowed to bring a laptop inside the classroom. Yeah, I think by now na-install na ang mga monitors, no? TV screens sa kada classroom para kung dunay i-present si teacher making use of, like for example, what I shared with you, the PowerPoint slides, so makita ra sa tanan. Di ba? Okay, any other concerns? Pero mas may gyud basta accounting major na gyud kay kaugalingong book for review purposes. Because you need that especially for your unsa na inyong comprehensive exam. We termed it as PAR. Unsa na? PAR ba na? We used to call that before a CEL, comprehensive exam for level 1, 2, and 3. CEL na. But now the CEL is replaced with the term PAR, I think.
Part po, man, part.
Part. Okay. P-A-R-T. Sige. There's another one who raised her hand. Kinsa to? Yes, Dave.
Excuse me, miss. For the book, there's a question for the book, but I'm using like old cost accounting book. So
Why are you using the old one?
Because
you have the answers already?
No. This is my sister's. She graduated from USC, so she gave me the book and she told me to ask if it's fine to use an old book.
Basta kay pariharam kag exercises and problems. Okay ra.
No, the exercises and problems are not the same.
So problema na nimo kung later on muhatag ko graded seat work, wa kay kuan kay you're not allowed. I give the graded seat work during the face-to-face, not online. I give the exam, the mastery test, on-site, not online. Mo nang you're required to bring your laptops or any gadgets with you the moment we are inside the classroom. Masynchronous or asynchronous, mugamit jud mo laptop. Ang amo magdamog desktop diya sa school kabugat. So the easiest thing to do is bring your laptop or gamay lang ang kuan kanang kinsingan ani mobile phone kung i-limit lang na ang use ninyo sa mobile phone. 2020 magka mo vision, okay ra. Pero mas comfortable gyud if you use the laptop. Di ba ka kinahanglan mo palit sa imong kaugalingong laptop? Wati naman sad kang manghuam, good siya ro ka pobre pud nimo wa kay silingan or wa kay relative nga kahuaman og laptop, o di ba? Sige, ansa pa? Time na ra ba, no? So, asa ta kutob sa atong discussion? Kutob rata dere no sa flow of costs. So, slide 18. We still have more slides to take up. Okay, see you next meeting. Kung na pa may pangutana, kaya wala naman tayo time ron. Next meeting na lang pangutana, okay?
Miss, are you going to post the PowerPoint, Miss?
Dili.
Okay.
Kaya inaa may recorded nga discussion. So makita ra na ninyo dito. Diba?
Thank you, Miss.
Everyone will be provided a copy of the recorded discussion. Any other concerns?
None, Miss. Thank you.
Naan na po, ma'am. Thank you po.
Miss.
Okay. Thank you for joining this session. See you next meeting. Synchronous gyapon ta this Wednesday.
Thank you, Miss.
Bye. Oy,